Hello, this is to show you how to set up the Oxford-Southampton cylinder seal scanner. First thing you need, obviously, is a table. It's worth just saying quickly that you should go for as big a table as you can and as solid a table as you can. You need lots of space, not only for the scanning equipment but also for your laptop and to lay out seals that you're working on. And it needs to be as robust as possible so it doesn't vibrate. Vibration's a big enemy. It will show up in the results if someone jiggles the table, and if at all possible arrange things so that no one is writing on the table or knocking against it when you're actually scanning. Also, it's a good idea if you can set up somewhere where the equipment can be left set up between sessions, otherwise you'll waste a lot of time reassembling it for each one. If you can't, just leave it set up on the table. See if you can arrange to move it onto a trolley without disassembling it, so that it can be moved out of the way between sessions rather than packed away in its box. I do realise these things might be quite difficult to achieve in some museums, and we've worked successfully in situations where almost none of those things was true, but if you can do that, it's worth trying to negotiate it a good working space. You need a couple of tools as well as a table. You need a 5mm Allen key and a small screwdriver, just a plain screwdriver with a flat blade. So here's a scanner. This is a Mark I, easily our most popular model. First thing on top is the light box. Just put that out of the way for now. And then underneath you've got some power supplies. Again, just put them to one side for the moment. And ease out the packing. You have to bend it a little bit to get it out. Do be careful with it. When you come to put it back, just ease it in by bending it. You might want to take some photographs at this stage to help put it back neatly. When you repack the scanner at the end of your scanning, you do need to fit everything in quite neatly to make it all fit. So this far down we come to the base plate. This has got a couple of parts already attached to it. Just put it on my table, and then under the base plate are the main components. That's the bottom layer in there. So I'm going to start by assembling the seal mount. This is the larger of the two pillars, and it goes on this bolt in the left hand corner of the base plate, just screws on. You can, just to make sure it's firm, you can put something through one of these holes and just turn it so it's nice and secure, but don't use too much force, just a little bit, just to make sure it's not wobbly at all. The next thing we need is the turntable. The turntable bolts onto these two holes here, and if you look in the box of small parts, you'll find the bolts you need to do that. So two of these bolts. For now, just do them finger tight, just use your fingers. And don't over tighten them, don't use a tool at this point. So it can still slide around. Then we fit the top support for the seal. You need this bearing on its rod and the linear bearing here, and it goes this way up with a bit of tape on top. You put that through the linear bearing, just slides nicely, and then that fits on there. That can rest on the turntable, and you mount this so that it's flush here, so that this bracket is level with the top of the pillar, and you use your Allen key, just gently tighten the screw at the side here just to hold it in place. Now you have to line it up, and this is quite fiddly, and you really need to leave plenty of time for it. Don't rush it, and just keep doing it until it's right. Your aim is to get it so that everything's secure and the bearing is absolutely central on the turntable, and there are a couple of little circles marked on the turntable that you can use to help. If the turntable happens to have been packed with one of these caps on, you just pull it off. Get it out of the way. There's two adjustments that you've got basically. If you move the turntable, if you loosen the turntable can move that way. If you loosen the top of the bearing here, then that can move in the orthogonal direction. And you need to fiddle with them until, when they're tightened up, the bearing is central. And the reason it takes time is that as you tighten these things, it tends to move just a tiny bit. So you think you've got it right, and then you tighten things up and you find you haven't, and you just got to fiddle around till you have got it perfect. As I say, it's just worth taking your time and spending time. When you're tightening these bolts particularly, don't use a lot of force. That goes for all the bolts going into the base plate. Don't use it like that. Keep it straight or straightish, and use it with just gentle force, just with your fingers. The base plate's aluminium, and you don't want to strip the threads. So I've tightened that up and it's wrong, so I just need to fiddle around and adjust it. There may be an edit in the video at this point as we cut out a load of fiddling around. So you have to keep trying, undoing, just slacken it off a bit and try and get it in the right place, and then keep it there. It helps very much if you're just quite gentle with those. That's okay, I think, for now. Then, if you want to check the alignment, you take a cap, a cylinder seal cap. This is this rubbery thing here, and you want this cone-shaped one with a point, and that just pushes into the bottom of the bearing. Pushed all the way in till it sits nicely. It should rotate freely in the bearing. You also need the alignment object, which is a white plastic 3D printed device, and you can sit that on the turntable like this. It's got 4 holes in the bottom. There are 4 little studs on the turntable, and you can just put it on so it sits on the studs. Make sure, lift that up, make sure it doesn't wobble at all. You shouldn't be able to get your fingernail or a sheet of paper in between the white base and the turntable. It should be absolutely stable. If it does rock a little bit, just try taking it off and putting it on in a different orientation on a different set of studs. But when that's on, it should just be nice and stable, and it's got a hole in the top, and the little cap should sit just nicely in the centre of the hole, so that confirms that it's all lined up nicely. Finally, at this stage, we'll just put in place the controller for the turntable. The controller is this Thor Labs box. Goes that way around, and it just sits on here, and there are 2 little clips either side that just hold it in place. And we might as well, while we're working here, just wire this bit up. We won't in general wire up yet. There's a plug here that goes into the back of the box here, and it's worth just making it secure with its screws. So there are a couple of little screws that just hold the plug in place, and this is what you need, the screwdriver for. We'll connect it up to the computer later. So that's the main seal mount done. The seal will go there, and we can put a base mat on to protect the seal. I think this one with the circles of pimples is the best. It's got 4 holes in, so if you just can get them to align with the studs, there we are. That just sits there. That goes down in the middle of it, and your seal will sit here. The next thing to put on is the projector. That's this. It projects a sharply focused pattern of light on the seal for making the 3D scan. And it goes on this translation stage. Perhaps I should say first, the translation stage slides in this direction, and you use it to focus the projector later. And it's convenient to start off with it in its central position so that the front edge of the top sliding part lines up with the base, and you move it backwards and forwards by screwing that knob there. As I say, in due course you'll use that for focusing. The projector goes onto those 2 holes there, and you use the same kind of bolt out of the small parts box. There's one in. It's just held on with 2 bolts. This part here should be pointing downwards at the front there. Slightly awkward actually. Just do it with your fingers for now, leave it loose, because we'll have to align it later when everything else is set up. For scans that show the surface appearance of the seal, we need an ordinary LED shining on it. So put the smaller pillar on here. Again, just a gentle touch just to tighten it. And this is the LED. So it's wire tangled up. And it just slides on. And the idea is that you aim it at the seal and you put it at the same height as the centre of the projector lens. That's really not critical then. It's just testing a general illumination on the seal when you scan, when you do the direct light scan. And again, you just tighten the bolt up to hold it in place. And now we can put on the camera, the core of the operation really, and it goes on these 2 holes of this translation stage, which also it's convenient to start off with it centred in the middle of its range. And it goes on those 2, but in that orientation, that way round. And we'll just do that up, finger tight again, because we're going to have to align it carefully in the next video. So now we can wire it up. Power to the turntable first. Here's the power supply. It's got a little metal jack. This is a UK plug, obviously. If you have an adapter, you can plug it into a US outlet because it will work off 120 volts. And the power to the turntable goes into the turntable controller just there, like that. The connection from the turntable to the computer to control it is a USB cable. It's got a flat USB plug on one end and a conventional one on the other, and that goes on the same side of the motor controller using the flat socket. It needs to go right way up, and it's got little screws that can just be used to secure it, and it's a good idea to fasten them, make sure it doesn't drop out. And the other end just goes to a USB socket on your laptop. For the lighting, you have a switch to control it. The switch is powered from this box. The box again has a power lead with currently a UK plug, but again it'll take 120 volts, so you can just get an adapter and plug it into a US socket, and the power goes to the light projector's power supply, and then the cable from that hooks up to the central cable on the switch, which is there. The wires do always get tangled. The wire from the LED here goes into the general light output of the switch, and the wire from the line projector there goes into the line projector output, as you'd expect, and that, when it's plugged in, is the lighting setup, and later you'll use that to control which sort of scan is being illuminated. Finally, there's a USB cable, also with a flat end, that goes on into the camera, and the other end of that is a conventional USB plug that goes to your laptop again. Unfortunately, that doesn't have a screw to hold it in place, so you just have to try not to accidentally pull it out. There is also an auxiliary power supply for the camera, that's this, but you don't need it, and you can just leave it to one side, because the laptop can supply enough power to the camera through the USB connection, and that's fine. So that's it all hooked up. It's probably best, by the way, not to switch anything on until it's all wired up and connected to your laptop and everything, and then you can put things on and see if they work. But I'll leave it at that for now. Next video will be an exciting instalment to line up the camera and the projector very accurately with the axis of rotation of the seal.